Today's webinar, which is entitled, as I told you, Forensic Anthropology in the World and its Current Perspectives, will be delivered by Dr. Mitalee Mehta. Dr. Mitalee Mehta is a highly skilled and trained forensic anthropologist. She is currently serving as a visiting faculty at Raksha Shakti University in Gujarat. Dr. Mitalee Mehta is the first forensic expert who has carried out a detailed study on Gujarati population for anthropological research. She has also penned various research papers which are published in international journals like elsewhere. Dr. Mitalee Mehta has taught many forensic students and helped them to pursue their master's degree. Now, I request all the participants to be present during this entire webinar, and each and every participant need to fill the feedback form at the end of the webinar. Fort India is grateful to Mitalee ma'am for acknowledging and accepting our invitation to deliver today's webinar series. We hope all the participants will learn new things from today's webinar and they will be enjoying the entire webinar. To start webinar series without wasting much time. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Ushmi. Good morning, all of you. I have been very much glad to be the part of this wonderful web series conducted by Forensic Talent India. It has been a very good experience last Sunday when Kapil sir took the webinar series, and we just refreshed our older days of learning things from him. Now today is my turn to share my knowledge regarding forensic anthropology. The topic would be forensic anthropology in world current perspectives. So first of all, anthropology. What is anthropology? Anthropology is basically a term which is made up of two words. That is, first is anthropo. It is basically a Greek term, and anthropo, that means man, and logia, that means study. So anthropology means study of human being. There are mainly four branches of anthropology. The first branch is known as cultural anthropology. In cultural anthropology, generally they study the different cultures of human beings. In linguistic anthropology, studies the they study the evolution of different languages and their trends among the different populations. In the case of archaeology, they study the history and characteristics of older human beings. That is, when some older skeletons are dug out of earlier centuries, then features of their bodies and their biological structures, all these things are studied under the name of archaeology. And lastly, there comes the physical anthropology. In physical anthropology, they study the evolution and diversity of primates, and especially human lineage. Basically, they study the structure of a human skeleton and the teeth. So, forensic anthropology can be said as the applied subfield of physical anthropology. So the misnomer, which is generally there in the mind of people, that anthropology means the study of bones, that is very much wrong. Anthropology means the study of human being, while the part of anthropology is physical anthropology, in which we study the human being structure, anatomy, and especially the skeleton structure. And whenever it is applied for any case or in the legal matter, it would be known as forensic anthropology. So the forensic anthropology and their functions. So, the American Board of Forensic Anthropology defines forensic anthropology as the application of the science of physical or biological anthropology to the legal process. As I said earlier, whenever you use the principles or the observations of physical anthropology in any case, legal case, then it would be known as forensic anthropology. The main functions of anthropology till now, till recent past, were examinations and identifications of human skeletal remains for biological profiling in mass disaster cases, which could be like air crash, wars between the countries, terrorist attacks, tsunami, floods, rail accidents, mass killing, blast, etc. But in recent time, there are few more responsibilities on the shoulders of anthropologists, which are identification of a person from any video or CCTV footage. Then comes the injury analysis, photo or video superimposition, facial reconstruction, and creation of forensic anthropological data of existing population. Because whenever you get any recent case, you get any skeleton or any bones of recent time, then you can't compare the measurements or the features with the older data. So it is very important that the creation of existing populations data is very much important. Now we will move to the history and development of anthropology, forensic anthropology in the world. First of all, Alphonse Bertillon. Almost every forensic student would know him as the father of anthropometry. He started the he started to take the bodily measurements of the uh, criminals who were there in the jail. The bodily measurements were taken for their identification, and especially for the criminals who used to come very frequently to the jails, that is, the recidivist criminals. So he developed a new technique of identification with the help of different bodily measurements as well as the uh, photography or the portrait parlor method of the uh, criminals who are there in the jail. Then comes Thomas Dwight, who is known as forensic anthropologist's father. That is, father of forensic anthropology. In early 1878, he started writing research papers and essays on the identification process or the features of the human skeleton from which we can identify human beings. So he started back in 1878 for the sake of identification by the use of anthropology. Now we will see how it has developed in different countries of the world. First, we will see how it has developed in USA. Being present on the crime scene with investigation professionals for medical examiners in USA, it is very common. It has been started very back, very long, from a very long time. So it is a not new thing to be present of a medical examiner on a crime of scene along with the investigating officer. Then the subject forensic anthropology was added to the section in the American Academy of Forensic Science in 1972. In 1977, the American Board of Forensic Anthropology was founded. uh, they basically focused on training the experts who could work along with the odontologist, pathologist, and crime investigators. Then new society of forensic, new organization was found named as Society of Forensic Anthropology. And presently in USA, forensic anthropologists are taking an active part. They are active participant in the disaster mortuary operational response teams, that is known as DMORT, and US military death investigation. Next is the European countries. In European countries, the development of forensic anthropology has a different scenario. Uh, the first society or the organization which was found in Europe was the Forensic Anthropology Society of Europe in 2003, and it has grown since then. In UK, there was an organization known as British Association for for Forensic Anthropology, and it worked to develop the professionals who could help out the investigating officers whenever the any uh, cases regarding identification of human remains comes. There are few collections that are Pretoria collection, Robert J. Terry anatomical skeletal collections, Raymond T. A. Dart collection, William Bass collection. These are the collection of all the bones of human being. The collection has all the details of identity of those bones. Meaning, if I have got a skeleton from this collection, I will be having all the details of identification of that skeleton. That is, what was the age when he died, what was the sex of that person, what was the stature of that person when he was alive, and what was the race of that person. So, based on the all the information, I can connect the observations with the actual data. So they are the basis of initial studies in the field, and the demographic and biological information which are there in the databases are of immense value, and in the case of learning how to identify skeletal remains accurately. So in the initial years, whenever any scientists would like to in the field of forensic anthropology, they would use one of these collections to compare the data or to make a standard data for any kind of anthropological variable. Then there was a scientist known as Wilton Krogman. He was one of the earliest scientists who worked in the field. Generally, in the those days, people that we cannot uh, differentiate different population, or we cannot say anyone with any particular race, but Krogman worked on in that direction. He studied many uh, craniofacial different craniofacial variables. He studied different skeletons, and ultimately he concluded that the whole world population can be uh, divided into mainly three races, that is Caucasoids, Mongoloids, and Negroids. So he was the person who divided the population into three races. He proved that the skull is the most useful part for ancestry estimation, and the accuracy rate or the success rate would be 85 to 90% when the metrical and morphological examinations are done together. He also stated that pelvis also is an important part for ancestry estimation or race estimation, which has the success percentage of 70 to 75 percentage, while the rest of the skeleton are not of much use as far as the ancestry estimation is concerned. Now we will see how it got developed in the in country India. So first of all, there was an anatomist named Pan who first recorded the length of long bones of the Indian population. He did that for the stature, that is the height estimation, and to differentiate the whether the to differentiate the length of bones in the case of males and females, and he concluded that the average length of bones is larger in male as compared to female. Then another Indian researcher, Nat, attempted to estimate stature from the length of long bones by deriving the multiplication factor for individual bonds, which we are using nowadays. The multiplication factor is the one with which we can derive a formula from which we ultimately can determine the stature of the human skeleton or the remains which is collected from the crime of sin. So this is the stature of the human remains found from the crime of sin. Siddiqui also worked on the femur of Indian population, and he also made some observations. The compilation of forensic anthropology work started very late in India. It almost the later half of the 20th century. Initially, the research involved the estimation of sex from clavicle, humerus, and femur only. In 1972, Singhan Singh attempted to study the curvature of femur in Indian population. In 1987, Dr. Surendranath sir, uh, gave a detailed study of physical anthropology in the book named as An Introduction to Forensic Anthropology, which gave a wider view towards the subject, and which became the you can say Gita for the people, for the students who want to go further in forensic anthropology. Unfortunately, there are not much research done in India, and whatever research is done, either they are unpublished or they are published at the national level. So, whenever any further or detailed research are carried out in India, there would be very less publication with which we compare the current research or the current results. So this is the very uh, very we can say that very bad part in the field. Now the one more difference between the US, the development it has occurred in US and it has not been possible in India, is that in India the examiners, the forensic experts, forensic medicine department people do not go to the actual crime of sin. The investigation officer only goes to the crime of sin, and in addition, if anything happens, then only in special cases the people from forensic medicine or forensic science laboratories are being called. It is the responsibility, full responsibility of the investigating officer only to analyze the circumstances of death in all the unnatural cases. In cases of disasters also, he has to identify the missing individuals. So, if the experts are not there on the crime scene, they would not be able to identify the human remains which are recovered, and they would not be able to secure them, which should be done in very proper way. So, in India, the investigation officer seeks support from forensic medicine experts primarily for whenever there should be they have to know the cause of death, and they have to know any issues with the human identification purpose. We strictly require to get the services of trained forensic anthropologists in the cases where the identification of human remains are concerned. So, whether it is a forensic medicine or medical officer or a forensic science laboratory expert, there are few people who are expert in, especially in forensic anthropology. So, strictly they should be involved in the cases when these kind of remains are recovered from the crime of seen. Now we will move to the application part. Basically, forensic anthropology has the one application. It is the biological profiling of the human remains. Biological profiling includes the estimation of ancestry, estimation of sex, estimation of age, and estimation of stature. So first of all, estimation of ancestry. As I said before, the scientists could not define the term race or the ancestry, but they do believe firmly that there is some geographical pattern in the skeletal features of the whole population of world. But on those basis, how can be divided into different groups? They could not understand at that time. Then the Wilton Krugman came into light, and he formalized stereotypical descriptions of attributes, including craniofacial. That is the he also measured the bones, different bones, as well as he gave the description of physical features of different bones to differentiate, to divide them into three main human races, namely Caucasoids, Negroids, and Mongoloids. You can see in the background there is a clear cut difference in the skull of the Caucasoids, Mongoloids, and Negroids. There are few more features which uh, give you idea regarding the race of the person or the race of the human remain. So these features are uh, so clear that anyone can go and check whether there is a the skull is of Caucasoid origin, of the Mongoloid origin, or the Negroid origin. So it was about the ancestry, but nowadays the globalization has occurred and people move from one place to another place. So it is very difficult to say that the one person will be of the pure origin, because intercaste marriages, inter religious marriages, inter-country marriages are increasing by manifolds in recent years. So these data could be uh, could be useless. I can't say I can't use the term useless, but they won't be as efficient as it was in the earlier years for estimating the ancestry. Now the next is the sex estimation. uh, in human beings there are but different bones which are having clear cut differences in their features and their sizes, which is known as dimorphism. Dimorphism is what there is a difference in the form of that bone. So this is the base of sex discrimination, that is the discrimination of male from female on the basis of bones. It can be done by morphoscopic method, in which we generally observe the physical features of the bones, and on the basis of physical features we differentiate male from female. We give them numbers according to the features and their frequency or their intensity. And then comes the metrical methods. In metrical methods, on different bones we identify different landmarks which are defined by the earlier scientist. Then after identifying those landmarks, we measure the distances between those landmarks, and in the differences, whatever difference is there among those measurements, are the basis for discrimination of male from the female. So whenever you get the whole skeleton, you can estimate sex with the accuracy of 100%. Whenever you get only pelvis, the accuracy rate would be 95%. Because you can see here in the picture, that is the male pelvic girdle, and this is the female pelvic girdle. There is a this is called subpubic angle. This angle is very angular, very narrow in the case of male, and in the case of female, it is clearly very wide. The birth canal, this is wide birth channel, and this is broad subpubic angle in the case of female. So only from pelvic girdle you can identify whether the uh, recovered skeleton belongs to a male or a female. Then whenever you get a skull only, then the accuracy rate of discrimination would be up to 92%. So here in this case also you can see very clear cut differences. These are the supraorbital edges, the robustness of the skull, the sharp borders, the shape of the chin. These are the basic features which differentiate male from female. And in addition to this, we also use some of the measurements which also clearly differentiate male from female. So whenever you get only skull, the accuracy of sexing the skull would be up to 92%, and whenever you get pelvis and skull both, the accuracy would be up to 98%. Other bones also have a different kind of discrimination rate, but they are very less as compared to these two bones. So mainly whenever the sex estimations are concerned, these two bones are used. Whenever these two bones are not available, postcranial elements, that is the long bones, are used for estimating sex, which are having a little lower success rate. Then comes the age estimation. Sorry. uh, Basically age estimation is done by three ways. First is the appearance and fusion of ossification centers, that is in human body, through his whole life, the ossification centers appearance and their fusion has a specific timeline, and by seeing in which timeline the occurrence is there, ossification center appearance and fusion is there, we can estimate the age of the person. So as there is a specific timeline, we can define definite tell the age of the person whose human remains are recovered from the crime scene. The second method is the union of epiphyses. Similarly, in this case also, at certain age, certain epiphyses gets united, and depending upon this, how many epiphyses have united, how many are left, on those basis, the age of the person can be estimated. And lastly, the closure of cranial sutures. These are the cranial sutures. And the closure of cranial sutures means there are basically different closure. You can see these lines are known as sutures, and whenever the person is younger, this might be the skull of an infant, in which case the sutures are open. As the person grows, the sutures get united, and ultimately this would be the sequence in which the person would grow. The first level 0, level 1, level 2, and level 3. In this case, complete obliteration has happened. So it could be said that a person is almost of the age of 50 to 60 years. In case of age estimation, you cannot pinpoint age. You can give a range of the age. You cannot say the person would be of 56 years or 70 years or 72 years. You can give a range of 5 to 6 years. So here is the closure of cranial sutures. Basically, they are used in the case of kids, because in that case the sutures closure is happening very frequently. This might be of the infant. Next would be the epiphyseal union. So in this case, you can see here the picture is there, in which you can see at different ages, different epiphyses. Epiphyses means the end of the bone. So in this case, if you are saying that humerus is this is called humerus, the hand bone gets its epiphysis, that is its end gets united with the other bones, ulna or radius, at this age, 14 to 17 age, then the ulna's end and the end of humerus would be united in this case. So if you are saying that these two ends are united with each other, you can say that the person whose remains are recovered could be of 14 to 17 years of age. Similarly, in this case also, this is a femur bone, so its epiphyseal union with the pelvic girdle would happen at 16 to 19 age. So union of two ends, one end of one bone and the other end of the second bone, they get united at certain age, and on the basis of this union, you can estimate the age of the human remain. And lastly, the stature estimation. So measurements of long bones. In this case, generally long bones are used, and measurements of long bones and the relationship with the stature, that is the height, are established. So whenever you are applying those data, first of all you have to establish the data for the population or for the person. So whenever the estimates are being done, they are done on the basis of data developed or the established data, right? So whenever stature estimation comes into mind, you have to first get the measurements of long bones, and then you have to see its relationship with the stature, that is the height. The measurements can be taken either on the living being. So if you want to make a database, you can either use the living being, you can take the measurements of the bones of the living being with the help of different instruments and establish a data bank, or you can use the dry bones to estimate the stature of human skeleton or to develop the data bank, right? But whenever you use dry bones, that is, whenever you have recovered some dry bones from the crime scene and you have to estimate the stature of the person, so after calculating the stature from the dry bones, you have to add 2.5 to 4 centimeters in the estimated value, just to compensate the soft tissues, because whenever the person is alive, you would be having soft tissues in between the bones. The bone, there will be only bones in the human body, there will be soft tissues too. So this value 2.5 to 4 centimeters are to be added in the estimated value of stature from the dry bones only. Whenever you get the mutilated body, when some soft tissues are present, when you recover mutilated body, there would be no need to add any added values in the case of stature estimation. So these are four main pillars of biological profiling, which is the main subject or main criteria of forensic anthropologist. But as I have said earlier, there are few more responsibilities on the uh, shoulders of uh, forensic anthropologist. Before that, we would see some basic instruments which are used to take measurements of the bones or living beings. That is the sliding caliper, spreading calipers, stendometer. These two are, sliding caliper and spreading calipers are used to take the measurements or on either bones or on living beings. Stendometer is basically used to measure the stature of the person. So whenever you make a database, then you have to see the actual stature of the person, and then you have to measure the bones of the person, and you have to uh, establish the relationship between the actual stature and the measurements of the length of the bones taken, right? Then comes the weighing machine. They are generally using weight also. Basically they don't play any role in developing the formula, but they are generally using weighing machine as well whenever the identification process or the data establishment process is going on. And this is the osteometer, in which you can in this way uh, measure the length of the bone. So these are the basic instruments. There are few more instruments which are a little advanced whenever you have to measure the thickness of the skin or some things like that. But these are the basic anthropological instruments, you can say, which are used to take measurements. Now, as I said, few more responsibilities on the shoulders of anthropologists, forensic anthropologists, that are those are first is to identify a person from a video or a CCTV footage. So how we will do that? We will do that by using these craniofacial dimensions. As we have done in the case of skull, in that we just identified few of the landmarks, and then interdistances we measured. In the same way, on the actual face we identify those landmarks and take the interdistances of these landmarks, and in that way the craniofacial dimensions would be made. And on those craniofacial dimensions, if we are having a data of a person, whenever we can get the match of the person, we can know who is the person in the video footage or any CCTV footage. So this is an additional thing which is very much growing in recent years. The development of this kind of craniofacial dimension database is on the peak. The second one is the injury analysis. On the basis of injuries found on the bones, that is, here it is shown that there is a bullet mark on the skull of the remain. So in this case, we can tell that the person would have died due to the gunshot. Similarly, different kinds of injuries can be found on other bones, and from that we can determine what kind of antemortem injuries were on the body of the person who is dead. And probably we can also estimate the cause of death in that case. Uh, if, if the anthropologist feel that the injury which is found in the bone or any part of bone is fatal, then it could be concluded that the fatal injury could be the reason of the death of that person. The next comes the superimposition. Superimposition is basically the photograph of any missing person is superimposed. That is, it is kept uh, on exactly on the negative of the skull which is recovered from the crime scene. If the landmarks and the measurements fit, you can say that the persons whose photographs you are having and the skull which is recovered from the crime scene are of the same origin. So superimposition is the new trend to get the identification of the skull. And finally, the facial reconstruction. As we have seen in the case of superimposition, here also we can, here in this case, we can make the face of the person whose skull we have found. For that, we have to have some data of the tissue depth. That these are all the things, these are the clay which are used as the tissues which are present on the face. So if we know that up to what depth these tissues are present in the person or in this particular population, then according to the depth we can make this clay, we can stick the clay on the this skull, and gradually ultimately we can make the face of the person whose skull it could be. The face might not be the exact one, but we can have an idea about the identification of that person. The basically this accuracy depends on the accuracy of the data of the tissue depth markers. So this is the most recent thing which is on trend nowadays. Now moving to the current trends. What are the current trends and how the studies are being done in the field of forensic anthropology? So in India, mainly two types of works are being done in the field of anthropology. First is the work that is carried out by the students of medical profession, and second is the uh, work carried out by the students of forensic science field. So whenever the students of medical profession work on the forensic anthropology field, they work either for their dissertation of anatomy, MD. That is the students who are doing their masters in anatomy subject. Generally, they do their work on some bones. Either they get the bones from the their hospital collection. Generally, medical colleges are having a few bones collection, and from those bones they work on that bones, and ultimately they come to some conclusion regarding that subject. They might use the freshly collected bones. Those are the unclaimed bodies. The unclaimed bodies which are coming to the mortuary, they extract the fresh bones from the dead bodies, and they also work on those bones. Or they also works on the bones that are extracted from the donated dead bodies. Very few people donate their bodies to the hospital for this academic purpose, but whenever they are having few of these bones, they work on these kind of bones. But in all these cases, the number of bones will be very limited. They won't be having a huge sample size, and so they will be working on a small sample size, and then they will conclude the study. So in those cases, with a small sample size, whatever the results are concluded can't be reliable much, because mostly they work on either 15 or 20, maximum 50 of the bones. The maximum sample size of medical professional would be 50 of each sex. So in those cases, you cannot definitely tell that this measurement is the measurement which can differentiate male from female. The higher the amount of sample, the better would be the results. And 50 or 15, these are the very less as compared to the people who are working in the field of forensic science. Basically, in the field of forensic science, they work for their PhD. Basically, they work on the bones of different colleges. That is, if the person is from medical college and medical profession, then he will be working in the on the bones which are available in his own college. But in the case of forensic person, he would collect all the bones from the most available colleges. He will go to all the colleges that are available in the state or in the nation. So ultimately, they will be having a comparatively huge sample size in the case of dry bones collection. But in many cases, they don't have the dry bone collection. When they don't have the dry bone collection, either they work on the living being as such. That is, they measure the different aspects of anthropological variables on the living beings itself, or they use the imaging data of the living being. That is the x-ray. The people who are coming for x-ray, they use their data, x-ray data of that particular bone for their study purpose. So x-ray and CT scan are the most upcoming techniques used in the field of forensic anthropology. In this case, you can have the data of recent population, you can have accurate data, as well as you can have as much data as you want. In this case, you won't be have any limitation as far as the sample size is concerned. So these are the two types which happen in India, uh, the type of works that happen in India. The current trends in India are to establish the data bank of different anthropological variables of different population, because basically the shape, the size of bones are affected by the culture, the food habits, the climate, the geographic uh, origin. All these things affect the shape and development of the uh, bone of any particular person. And in India we are having a very divergent culture. Then we have very diversified food habits, diversified climates. So in case like the country like the country of India, we have to go at least state wise data. We cannot use the data of Kashmiri people on the data of Tamilian people, because they are having extreme diversity as far as the culture, food habits, climates are concerned. So different populations, anthropological variables of different populations should be established to get the more specific population specific data, which would ultimately lead for to more accurate results. The second trend is to establish the data bank of existing population, so we can actually apply them to the cases that happen in the present time. Basically in the earlier studies, the older data that the people of older times whose bones were available were studied. So there would be a evolution from that time to this time. Yeah. So we cannot use the data of 1920s or 1930s to the present time. We have to get the recent data bank, so we can use it on the recent cases that happens today and which are recovered today. So it has to be the data bank of the existing or recent population only. Then only we can apply them on the cases in which the skulls or human remains are recovered. So recent populations or existing populations data bank is very necessary, and it is being done in a very good manner in the from the recent past. To use different imaging techniques to get more accuracy and data of the recent population. Then huge sample size, to have a huge sample size is also a very good trend nowadays, because people do not satisfy themselves with some 50 or 100 samples. They go for 200, 500, 600 samples, and then they conclude some results. So the trend is that to use a huge sample size, so more reliable results can be yielded. And there are few more advanced techniques like digital superimposition, which could be used for the identification of unknown skull. If you are having a list of missing person, and if you are getting any skull from the area near the person's home, then you can use that idea of digital superimposition rather than going for all these biological profiling, because in that case there are chances that the person was killed there and he was buried in the near area of his home only. So the person's latest pictures, latest photographs, and only the negative of the skull would be enough for the digital superimposition technique, which would be a faster technique for the identification and absolute identification. So these are the trends. As I said, people use different imaging techniques. This one is the cephalogram, that is the x-ray of skull, or you can say x-ray of face. As we do on the skull, we identify the landmarks, then we measure the difference between different landmarks. Similarly, in the case of cephalograms is the as I said, it is the skull x-ray of skull only. So in this case we would identify the trace the different landmarks, and then we will take the different measurements. That is, the measurements are the distance between different landmarks, and ultimately we will create the data which would be created by the use of dry bones also. So both the things will give you the same results. You don't have to add anything for soft tissues or subtract anything for soft tissues, because in this case we are getting the direct image of the bones itself. There are no soft tissues attached in this image, so we can directly apply this data as we do in the case of dry bones. This is the x-ray of long bones. In the digital x-ray, you can have this kind of image on your computer. You can also find the landmarks you want, and you can also measure the distance between different landmarks on the x-ray machine itself. That is the monitor or the software which is available with the x-ray machine itself in the case of digital x-ray. These are the images of volume branded or CT scan image. This is the CT scan image of brain and face, and these are the long bones. Similarly, in this case, we can identify the landmarks. We can take the different distances between different landmarks, and ultimately we can create a huge data bank with the help of volume branded CT scan image. In this case also, we can directly apply the data as we do in the case of dry bones because there are no soft tissues attached. So these are the recent trends to use the imaging techniques, which gives mainly two benefits. First is this: you can have the data of recent populations because these data are collected from the hospitals, from the patients who are coming for some injury or some problem in their health, and when they are advised to get their x-ray done or their ct scan done, whenever the skulls are intact, you take those data for your examination. So definitely the data would be of the recent population, and in this case you can't limit yourself for the sample size. You can have as much sample as you want, but just the time timeline would be a little problem, because in most of the cases in hospitals they then generally don't come for x-rays or CT scan with small problems. In many cases the accidental fractures are seen, so those data can be studied for the purpose. So it can take a little more time than you study on the dry bones, but you can definitely have a very huge sample size with the help of this kind of techniques, and you can have the data of recent population. Two main benefits of these techniques which are on the trend nowadays for the forensics anthropology field. Now we will see the case studies. 1 minute. Okay. So we will see some of the cases which were solved, or where the identification was made by using the uh, different anthropological parameters and the different anthropological discoveries. So in 2001 in Rome, a woman went missing. Many inquiries were done, but initially they could not find the woman or any clues about her, whether she was living or died. But it was not loaded and the case was closed. But after that, a cold case unit reopened this case. They were having a doubt on the partner of that woman, and so they interrogated him with some hard questions, with some strictness. And then after all, after some time, he he confessed that the woman whose partner he was died accidentally at his own home, and he was so scared that he buried the body in his own garden. So after this narration, the investigating people dug his garden, and they found skeletal remains there. Though, so from the features of the skull, they could conclude that the origin of the skull was the Caucasoid. Then from maxilla bone and supraorbital ridges, they could conclude that the remains were belong to a female. From the postcranial elements, that is from the long bones, they could estimate the age and stature of that woman. So in a way, by using all the four parameters of biological profiling, they identify a woman who was missing in 2001. In the second case, one Dr. Sharon Derrick and Jennifer Love used the facial reconstruction technique to identify a victim who was missing for 3 decades, and he died when he was 15. So the name of the victim was Randall Lee Harvey, who was missing at the age of 15, and ultimately it was known that he was killed by a person who used to who was a notorious criminal, and he was a known criminal. So by the use of facial reconstruction, she could almost create the face of the Randall Harvey. So this was the case of facial reconstruction. Now the third case is for the case of superimposition. This is the very famous case of India, that is of Sheena Bora case. In the case of Sheena Bora, Dr. Professor S.K. Tripathi, who used to be the uh, head of the department of forensic medicine department of BHU, that is Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi. He used this superimposition technique for the identification of Sheena Bora. They collected 4 photographs of Sheena Bora from her home, and then they used the superimposition technique with the help of software Phantomorph setup, and on the skull, which was recovered from the crime scene of the jungle. So this is a very famous case in which the Sheena Bora case, in which the superimposition was actually applied. So it was the highlight in the newspapers that how the superimposition technology worked, and how a high profile case was solved with the help of this superimposition technique. So whenever these highly advanced techniques are used, they actually work very smoothly, and they give the absolute identity of the person. Then the next case was of the World Trade Center. As everyone knows, there was a very disastrous attack on the New York's Twin Towers in 2001. There were enormous number of fragmented and altered human remains, and the fragmented remains were only identified with the help of DNA analysis. But to do the DNA analysis of so much large samples was a problem, and then the forensic anthropologist came to help the people of DNA staff, and uh, they did some identity work, that is that differentiate no human and non-human bones, as well as in some cases they also made the biological profiles of the victims. So it saved DNA technicians a lot of time, energy, and expense, because whenever any known body comes, you have to go for this DNA testing. But it if it was of non-human origin, it would be a very large waste of time and energy and expense, especially when the crisis is so large and the number of victims is so large. So in those days also, forensic anthropologists came into uh, their job to identify few victims, as well as to find whether the material of the origin of human or non-human. And lastly, the case of Kaylee Anthony. There was a little child in 2008 whose skeleton remains were found in a wooded area. They uh, determined that they belonged to a 2-year-old Kaylee Anthony, who was reported missing. Uh, He was missing in July 2008, and in December 2008, the skeleton remains of the child they recovered, and it was of Kaylee Anthony, a 2-year-old girl, and probably the age was determined by the use of the sutures, because in the infants and the children the sutures are very clear, and on the basis of those sutures appearance and closure, estimation of age are being done in the cases of child. A forensic anthropologist named Dr. Michael Warren also found a duct tape on the skeleton. That is, on the mouth of the skull, there was a duct tape. And so they also conclude the cause of death, which was concluded as suffocation, because the mouth and the nose of the child was covered with the duct tape. So in this way, the forensic anthropologist can help in uh, solving the cases, identifying the victims, and identifying other aspects of the case. So forensic anthropologists are the, we can say, very key part of the investigation. So now we will move to some limitations which are there, especially in our country, and their possible solutions. The first limitation in our country is the lack of huge bone collection for the studies. Because in our country, for religious reasons, the method of disposal of dead body is cremation and not the burial. The countries where the burial is the method of disposal of dead bodies, they can, after a decade, they can dug out the uh, buried dead bodies, and they work on the bones with the permission of the relatives of those dead people. So in the case of a country like India, we cannot have a large bone collection, as it can happen in the countries where the burial is the method for disposal of dead body. So what are the possible solutions? More dead body donation should be encouraged, so we can have more bones to study and to conclude the results. And we can also go for the different imaging techniques which should be used to make the database. These are the two possible solutions. The second problem is lack of application of the data established. So whenever the researcher or the scholar develops a data of a particular population, it doesn't get used in the real cases. Whenever police investigates any case or they get any skull or skeleton, they won't use the data developed by the scholars for that particular region or that particular uh, population. So the possible solution should be the law enforcing agencies or the FSL should either upgrade their manner of work. They should include the work which is being done in the research field. They should continuously be in their line, or apply the latest data, or they should hire who are having expertise in the field of identification, that is the forensic anthropologists. They should take the direct help of the people who are specialized in it only. So these are the possible solutions, because won't make any difference if you are making the data on data and data until it is being used for the real cases. If the time being consumed for solving the case won't reduce by your data, then the data collection or data establishment won't make any difference. So they should be applied into the real cases, and the FSLs in the law enforcement agencies should be work with hand in hand with the research scholars or the people who are in the research field, and they should be upgraded and updated with the latest research that are being done in the field. And lastly, lack of population wise data. As I said earlier, in our country there is a very diverse amount of diversity in the culture, in food habits, in climate, and we cannot apply the data of one population or one region to the another region. You can see clear difference in their physical features. If you see a Kashmiri person, you will find that similarity with the Pakistanis, because the boundary is made by human beings, not by the god. So in that continuity only they will having the physical features. So in that part of Kashmir and that part of Pakistan, the people would look alike. Similarly, as you come down, the physical features will keep on changing from area to area, but it would change gradually and in a constant manner. So if you are having a data of Tamil Nadu, you cannot use it in Gujarat or in Uttar Pradesh. You must have the data of Gujarat itself. You must have a data of Uttar Pradesh itself. As Uttar Pradesh is a very huge state, you can have two or three regions in itself, in the state itself. So if you are not doing that, more regions in the state itself, at least state-wise data should be there. And all this data should be compiled and a central data bank should be made. So whenever you find any remains, you can have all the data with you, because many cities in our country are having a huge number of mixed population. Like in Ahmedabad, you won't get only Gujarati people. You will get many Rajasthani and Maharashtrians who are staying in Ahmedabad for generations. So in those cases, you have to go for Gujarati population's data as well as the Rajasthani or Maharashtrian. In the same case, in Mumbai or Delhi, there will be population from the whole India. So whenever the person or the investigating officer recover any skeletal remains, if he is having the central data bank, they can directly apply all the things at a time, and ultimately they can come to the conclusion whether the person belongs to this part or what part of the country, and ultimately they can also know the identity of the person. So these are the limitations which are a little more than expected in any field, but there are possible solutions also, which if we implement in the real life, there is many things are being done on the paper, but there is no actions are taken in the real life. So if we implement these solutions in real life, the scenario of forensic anthropology in India can change to a great extent. Now, the conclusion. So, due to global shrinkage, the possibility to get the mixed population in any mass disaster has increased many folds. So, if you are having any plane crash, there won't be possibility that you will get the Americans also, only, or you will get the Indians only, or you will have the Gujaratis only. You will not have that kind of particular origins people. You will have mixed population in almost all the mass disasters possible, because people are moving from one region of the world to the another region very frequently and very easily as compared to the earlier time. In the earlier time, in older days, people don't used to go away from their hometown, I mean mostly, but nowadays people move like anything. So it is very important to note down that you will always get the mixed population in mass disaster. So, in these circumstances, the following developments are recommended. A large data bank of specific populations should be established with their interrelationship. Means, if the person is residing at certain place, if he is belongs to that place only, then it is fine. But if it is origin is of something else and is residing somewhere else, then what are the relationships between the measurements of both the origins? Means, for example, if a Maharashtrian stays in Gujarat for 3 generations, so though their culture and food habits might not change, but the climate and geography will definitely affect the third generation in the manner of development of bone. So we have to take the measurement of those third generation, and we have to compare them with the pure Maharashtrian and pure Gujarati people, so we can have idea ke, how much change occur when a person of different origin resides in another region for 3 decades or 3 generations or whatever time period it is. So interrelationship establishment is very important because of the population mixture. The next is the use of more advanced and accurate techniques should be encouraged to get the data of bones of recent populations, and the recently developed data should be uh, directly applied for biological profiling of the human remains found in the actual cases, because otherwise what would happen that the scholars keep on researching, they keep on publishing their work that this would be there in the libraries, but whenever the recovery of any skull comes, uh, the investigating agencies would be using the same age old methods for identification. So this application of the uh, data which is made, the research which is being done should be the prime importance in the case of forensic anthropology. Thank you very much. So this was the end of the uh, my session.
Thank you, Dr. Mitalee Mehta. We really had a very good time with you. It was a pleasure listening to you. Thank you everyone for exploring world of forensic anthropology with us. I would like to thank Ketan for all his technical support. Sorry for technical internet. I thank every one of you for exploring world of forensic anthropology with us. And I would like to thank Ketan for all his technical support. And last but not least, I would like to announce our upcoming webinar series, which will be held on 17th and 18th of October. Our upcoming web series will be fourth webinar will be on 17th of October, titled Scope and Challenges of Forensic Odontology by Dr. Arushi Chawla. She is holding a Master's of Science degree in Odontology and PDS. Then, after that, our first webinar series will be on 18th of October, titled Practice of Forensic Nursing in Post-COVID-19 Scenario, which will be delivered by Dr. R.K. Doria. He is holding MBBS and a PhD. He is diplomat, national board professor, and head of forensic medicine and toxicology. Thank you, everyone. We had a very good time this morning. Let me thank Mitalee ma'am once again. Have a nice day.